Hey, Real Country. It is high noon here at WMOQ 92.3 on your FM dial. That means it's time for the Marc McMain Show. I am Bob Furr, filling in for Marc on Tuesdays, and with me always is the incomparable Chastity Stewart.
So nice. Thank you.
Now, I say as always, but I came in here last week and you were nowhere to be found. It freaked me out a little bit.
Surprise. Yes, I'm sorry. I had a meeting, and I was with the Loganville Women's Club. Wonderful group of ladies in Loganville, so we were having our little monthly meeting, so wonderful. I missed you.
I just needed to be prepared.
I'm so sorry. But you were in good hands.
Yeah, I was in good hands.
Yes.
We had a good time.
Okay.
So also with us today, Jennifer Rosaleon, the Executive Director of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau. I always want to put visitors before convention. Convention and Visitors Bureau. We are going to be talking today about all things tourism. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
By the way, Chastity, I call Jennifer is one of what I call Trolley's angels. So
yes, she's so beautiful.
When I first came to town, there were three women that covered the three bases I needed to be covered. Jennifer covering tourism, Stephanie Donaldson covering history, and then Sarah Weibel covering the business side of things. So I nicknamed them Trolley's angels.
I love it, and just another reason these ladies do a great job in Madison. So we're happy to have her.
So let's jump in. I always like to talk about what's coming up in Madison and Morgan County. So this Saturday, I think it's the 9th, they have the Madison 5K and 10.2K. That's to benefit Morgan County Young Life. You do need to sign up for that in advance if running is your thing. You can go to www.runsignup.com. I think I'm showing my age there, right? You don't really say www anymore. I think I'm just supposed to say runsignup.com. And then, of course, the big event, one of the biggest events of the year, May 15th and 16th, the Tour of Homes coming up in Madison, and it's an impressive lineup. You got Boxwood. So Boxwood is the house that's the symbol of the city of Madison, built in 1850, just a classic antebellum mansion, really, one of the signature homes in town. You've also got the Magnolia House. That's that cool light blue house between the Baptist Church there on Main Street and the Presbyterian Church. The Peter Walton House, that's right up there by when you turn in off the strip there. They just finished renovating that house. A couple of guys did a fantastic job doing that. That was owned by the guy who had the very first cotton gin in Georgia, and that is really a beautiful home. And then the Echo House, which is a small little cottage up on Billups Avenue, but it was designed by a woman by the name of Leah Ross Wilborn, and she was one of the very first female architects to break into that male-dominated field, and she became one of the first and most successful female architects in this country. So, awesome. And then on May 25th, another great event in Madison is the Memorial Day event. Very careful not to say celebration, a little pet peeve of mine, right? I never say Happy Memorial Day. My Uncle Ralph right now, a veteran, he's over in the Netherlands, and he said it was an incredible day yesterday. So yesterday was the day, they call it Remembrance of the Dead. And so it's a day that they remember all the people they lost, civilians and soldiers, in World War II. And of course, the Netherlands was devastated in World War II, and he was in Arnhem, which is a city, if you ever saw the movie A Bridge Too Far, that's where the bridge was, and that city was flattened by the war. And he said at high noon, the entire city stopped. Like everybody, like mid-serving, waitresses, bartenders, everybody just froze where they are, stopped in their cars, and the whole city for 2 minutes, throughout the country, all the cities sits in total silence and remembrance. And he said there were about 100,000 people out in the square in the city where they have the memorial, and the King and Queen of the Netherlands planted the wreath. So just a great event over there. And we got to remember that's what Memorial Day is, right? It's not about barbecues and cookouts and going to the beach. It's about remembering the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice for this country. So that's on May 25th in Madison. It's the 29th annual Ride for America. So I don't know how many there are. Hundreds of motorcycles roll into town, and then they all gather at the town park, and they have a great ceremony there. So really cool kind of day there.
Yep.
So today we're talking about tourism, and we're going to talk about Madison and Morgan County. And I want to talk about one of the reasons that Madison is a popular destination, because 2 weeks ago I was listening to you and Mitch talking about the March to the Sea, and by my count, since I've come here, I have been given 10 different stories, if you count all the versions of what happened when Sherman came to Atlanta. So Number one is that Sherman burned every town in his path
Yes.
except Madison. Number two, Sherman...
Because of a girlfriend or something is the
It's
story.
on the list.
Okay.
It's on the list. Sherman found Madison too pretty to burn.
Yes, I believe that.
Joshua Hill, a man in Madison, convinced Sherman not to burn Madison because of various reasons.
Okay.
Number four, Sherman's cousin lived in Madison. Number five, Sherman had a girlfriend in Madison. Number six, Sherman's West Point roommate lived in Madison. Number seven, a variation on that, it was Joshua Hill that was Sherman's West Point roommate. That Joshua Hill, because he was the mayor and had been a congressman, a unionist who was anti-slavery, pro-union, and argued against secession and Civil War, they spared it because of Joshua Hill. That's number 8 on the list. And then number 9, Joshua Hill and Sherman were simply old friends, just roommates. And finally, number 10 is, and this is the most recent one I heard, apparently Sherman had the most delicious fried chicken dinner that he'd ever had in his life, and because the dinner was so good, he decided not to burn Madison. So those are the 10 reasons that I've heard. And when we do our tour on the trolley, I combine them all into one story. And I have this running thing on the tour where I say, remember Stratton Hickey was in here? Well, his mother wrote a book called As It Was Told to Me. And it's a collection of recipes and then kind of passed down stories. And so I'll ask people, now, as you hear what I just told you, do you think that is as it happened or as it was told to me? And I weave this fantastic story about Sherman's March, taking every myth and putting it all together. And without fail, everybody on the trolley is like, as it happened. Like that's as it happened.
So what you're saying is none of those are accurate.
None of it.
None.
None of it is true.
Okay.
So, hey, you're listening to the Marc McMain Show here on WMOQ 92.3 on your FM dial. Bob Furr here with Chastity Seward on Tuesdays, filling in for Marc on the Marc McMain Show. And today we're talking about tourism. So here's what really happened. Okay, let's start with Sherman burning every town on his march to the sea. Apparently Sherman was supposed to have hated the South, blamed it for the Civil War, wanted the South to pay for the war, and so he took it upon himself to burn Atlanta and then march the army out of Atlanta and marched across the sea.
Sure.
Okay, let's start to break that down because it's the whole story of Sherman's march where the whole thing starts to fall apart. First of all, Sherman did not hate the South. He was very fond of the South. He'd spent a lot of time here before the Civil War, and it might surprise you to know that he was the very first president of what became LSU, Louisiana State University. Now, he was not happy with the South continuing the war. He felt like the South should accept defeat, and he did, but he didn't blame the South for the war. He blamed politicians on both sides, including his brother. Now, he didn't really burn Atlanta. He burned the buildings that would be of use to the Confederacy: gins, mills, factories, warehouses, railroad buildings, and such like that. Now, when you start a fire like that, there's going to be collateral damage, so surely some other buildings were destroyed. Also, the Southerners retreating out of the city set a lot of things on fire to keep it out of the hands of the Union Army, their supplies and such like that. And then looters went through the city and started a lot of fires as well. Now, there's a story that he forced the evacuation. Everybody in Atlanta had to leave the city. 100% true. He did not want to leave that stronghold behind him, so he did force all the residents of Atlanta out of there. Now, as far as him taking it upon himself to go and do this march, he did not have that authority, right? He would have needed permission from both Lincoln and Grant, and he would have never gotten it. By this point, Lincoln was well on record with Grant's support of the policy of reconciliation, welcoming the South back into the Union. In fact, they were trying to talk states in the Confederacy to quit the war individually and rejoin the Union, and one of those states was Georgia. And Georgia was really the military objective of the March to the Sea. Georgia was the last bastion of support for the Confederate Army. Agriculture, industry, manpower. The rest of the southern states have been beaten up pretty bad. Georgia largely untaxed. So the objective was to get Georgia to quit the war, because it was believed if Georgia quit the war, the Confederacy would have to quit the war, and you could end the war with as little loss of life as possible. And American military leaders, interesting, had learned from the British that if you want Americans to quit a war, the last thing you want to do is make war on civilians. There were more enlistments in the Continental Army after British attacks on civilians than at any other point during the American Revolutionary War history. So the specific orders, it's called Special Field Orders 120, were that the Army was to target anything that was of use to the Confederate Army. So railroads, gins, mills, factories, warehouses. Plantations were fair game because they were producing cotton, which was important for a lot of uses for the Confederate Army. Now, the specific orders were that civilian property and civilians were not to be damaged or harmed. However, the Army was to live off the land. So they were to take whatever crops, livestock, anything they needed to sustain themselves to take it. And so that's where a lot of the stories come from, is the taking of those crops and all that sort of thing. And remember, at this time, this isn't just an inconvenience, right? An army comes through and takes all your crops and livestock. You got a winter. You got to survive. Yeah. And so that was the objective, and they were to live off the land. Now, there was civilian property damaged, no doubt about it. I mean, first of all, if you resisted in any way, even if you hid your livestock or whatever, you're good chance you were going to get your house burned or your barns destroyed. Plantations, as I said, were fair game. Anybody who had ties to secession, there was a guy right outside of Madison, I can't remember his name, but it's where the Union Army camped at night, the night before they came into Madison, and he got out of Dodge. In fact, there was a train out of Madison with a lot of people on it that had ties to secession that got out of town. So if you had ties to that, you're out of there. And then Sherman did talk about in his memoirs about making Georgia howl. And that it gets a little bit misinterpreted there because, up until that point in history, battles in our minds were fought on the battlefield. And so, by taking it even to factories, mills, and gins and railroads, even though they were supporting the Confederate Army, you could argue that he's making it, war on civilians. And then, of course, you're going to have some officers enforce the orders more than others. And look, you got 60,000 men marching across that have been at war for 3-4 years. They've seen friends die. They've gotten terrible news from home. There's going to be some bad actors doing some bad things. But the fact of the matter is, the first problem with Madison's Civil War story is that the talk of Sherman's march and all the destruction it wrought, greatly exaggerated, didn't start until about 10 years after the war, toward the end of Reconstruction, when the Lost Cause movement got started, and part of that movement was to demonize the North. And the fact of the matter is that many homes and buildings, all the towns, Millen got hit pretty hard. So when the Union Army was in Millen, they were in camp at night, and Union soldiers started coming out of the prison that had been there. And prisons were horrific during the Civil War. And so these guys were gaunt and run down. And when the Union soldiers saw the condition that their comrades were in, Millen took it pretty bad. But not only are all the cities and towns that were in the path to the sea still standing, just like Madison, many of them tried to use the slogan that they were the town that Sherman found too pretty to burn. So it turns out Madison just had better marketing in order to carry that forward. Now let's talk a little bit about this guy Joshua Hill. Early on, I had connected Mark with Brad Rice in town, who wrote a great book about Joshua Hill. So he was a former congressman, and he did oppose secession, but he was not pro-union or anti-slavery. He himself enslaved about 60 people. He was against the war because he understood that the industrial North was going to beat the South. If you took all the manufacturing capacity of all the southern states at the time of the Civil War and put it together, it equaled less than 25% of the manufacturing capacity of New York State alone. And so his argument was, we're going to lose this war, suffer devastation, and lose slavery all at once. If you guys will calm down, we can phase slavery out, keeping it for another generation. Now, in all likelihood, he was acting as the mayor, not the acting mayor, but acting as mayor with his influence in the town. And so he did play a role in it. And we'll get back to that as soon as we come back from a commercial break here. It is the Marc McMain Show on Q92.3. Bob Furr here filling in for Mark. We'll be right back.
The Madison Trolley Company is Morgan County's newest 5-star attraction. We offer historic Madison tours year-round, a haunted history experience in the fall, and our Madison Lights Christmas Tour and Mary Maddie Express Adventure for kids have become new holiday traditions. Our private charters add vintage charm to weddings and special occasions aboard a historic trolley by day, party trolley by night. Find us on the Madison Town Square or get on board by visiting MadisonTrolley.com or calling us at 706-997-1800.
Hey, this is attorney Bart Bitton with Bitton & Bitton. I live and work right here in Monroe, Georgia, and I am proud to serve this area. If you've been hurt in a car accident, you don't need some out-of-town lawyer that treats you like a number. You deserve a local lawyer you can trust, someone who lives here, works here, and takes care of people. So remember this, if you're ever in a car accident, be smart, call Bart. Bitton & Bitton, local lawyers you can trust.
Anytime is a great time to make memories at the Yellow River Wildlife Sanctuary in Lilburn. Close to home and fun for the entire family. Not only will you see wildlife up close, like bears, otters, bison, and more, you can enjoy a picnic lunch. There's gem mining and so much more. The Yellow River Wildlife Sanctuary, 4525 Highway 78 in Lilburn. Make plans to visit soon. To learn more, go to yellowriverwildlifesanctuary.com.
John's Supermarket in downtown Monroe is proud to serve the Walton County community for over 50 years. 3 generations of the Thompson family offering the freshest produce, quality meats, everyday essentials, and now featuring Bistro South, a quick service restaurant with freshly made Southern cuisine and ready-to-heat gourmet meals. Always proud to support local farmers and suppliers, John's Supermarket has the best meat in town and tons of weekly specials. Stop by and see them for all the ingredients, meals, snacks, sweets, gifts, and everything in between you need.
All right, welcome back. This is the Marc McMain Show on Q92.3 Real Country. I'm Bob Furr, filling in for Mark on Tuesdays, here with Chastity Stewart. Joining us also in the studio today, Jennifer Rosa Leone, who is the Executive Director of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we are talking about tourism in Morgan County, but right now we are talking about one of the things that makes Madison a tourist destination, which is the story of Sherman's Army, and story it is, as we are learning. So let's get back to it. Let's talk about Sherman now. There is no record that Sherman ever had a cousin in Madison. He and Hill were not friends. They had met. We'll get, that's a story for another time, how they met. You got to take the trolley tour for that one. They had met. They were not roommates at West Point. Hill never went to West Point. There's no record that he had a girlfriend in town. No record that he had a fried chicken dinner in town. But here's the thing. Here's the problem with the story about all of it. Here's the story about him having a girlfriend in town, finding the town too pretty to burn, having the best chicken dinner. The biggest problem with the story of Sherman finding Madison too pretty to burn, Sherman never set foot in Madison during the Civil War.
No way.
The closest he came was 45 miles to the south. He was with the main body of the Army in Milledgeville, then the state capital. Now, I will say it does seem like he may have stopped in Madison in the 1840s while on the train. So he would have been there for probably 20 minutes to an hour on his way to Augusta while the train got wood, water, and maybe they got something to eat. So maybe he got a girlfriend in that 20 to 60 minutes. If he did, it would be impressive. Yeah. But Sherman was a very devoted husband. So that's one part of the rumor that kind of ticks me off a little bit because he was really a great devoted husband.
Sure.
So the army that came through Madison was the 14 or 15,000 men of the 20th Corps, the northernmost wing of the Army of Georgia that had been formed to make the march to the sea. It was under a man named Slocum, who was seen as one of the more lenient, if not the most lenient, of Corps commanders on Georgia during the war. We do believe that Hill likely rode out to meet Slocum. We know from journals for a fact that they were always seen side by side while the Army was in the city. We know that Hill convinced Slocum to put guards on the homes after a couple was broken into. And, well, one Indiana private wrote that pretty soon men were taking their orders from Hill as if he was one of their officers. So, but at the end of the day, they tore up the railroad tracks all the way from Rutledge to Madison. They burned the railroad depot. They also burned a building called the Market House because they found a post in there that had been used to whip enslaved people, and that really infuriated the soldiers. So one journal says that building was burned with a great deal of enthusiasm, as he wrote. Another interesting fact is that's the second time the Union Army came to Madison. Another reason that they didn't do any damage was months earlier, August, about 600 or 700 troopers with a cavalry brigade that was retreating from Macon back to Atlanta came through Madison, and they had already burned a lot of the buildings that would have been of use to the Confederacy, so the damage was already done. There's an interesting story about Madison's only civilian casualty during that raid. Going to take the trolley tour for that one as well, too, though. So, now, interesting, as they left town, they passed Joshua Hill's plantation and burned it to the ground. Some people say the Army burned it because they were mad they didn't get to burn Madison. I think we can put that with the other 10 myths. Likely word just never reached them that it was Hill's plantation. So, I will say this. In conclusion, the journals do talk. Many journals of the Union soldiers who were in Madison during the march do talk about how it was by far the most beautiful city that they had seen since they'd been in the war. But truth of the matter is, Madison was spared for a variety of reasons, just like, all the other towns. The true nature of the march was not to destroy towns. Hill no doubt played a role, Slocum's leniency, the fact there was nothing to target, and also the Army was moving fast, right? They were vulnerable to attack. They were trying to get down there. Now, one last thing. The journals, as I said, talk about the beauty. There's a really interesting exchange I read in a journal about an officer who was a reverend with the 22nd Wisconsin, and he had an exchange with a woman from Madison as they came through town. And he asked her, they asked they talked about when the war would be over, and they both hoped it'd be over soon. And then the woman said, she thought the war would be over by now, but the big men of the South have everything to lose if they don't gain their independence, and so it must go on. But she said, in her opinion, that the South was whipped and they might as well own up. We hate you, meaning the Yankees, but you have all the power now and we must come under it. He asked her, though, then, do you think it might be that you have the wrong idea about Northerners? And she says, and I'll quote, yes, I suppose they have to quite an extent. So far as I have seen your army, I am quite well pleased with the soldiers. They seem to be under excellent discipline, much better than our soldiers. Then he asked her about slavery, and she said that no doubt in her mind slavery was a curse to the country and that the South would be much better off without it. And he then asked her about all these enslaved people joining up with the Army to march out, and she was glad of it. She's like, all the food has been taken. You guys took everything, so less mouths to feed, less people for us to take care of. Then he asked her what she thought of Yankee soldiers, and she said, that they were all told that they were going to be very bad men. But she said, and I quote, they have treated me very kindly indeed. So that was kind of interesting. So, but as he walked away, she said, I don't know what people are going to do around here. You people are taking everything. And so they had pretty well stripped the land clean. So you could argue that maybe Sherman's men, the Slocum's men, the 20th Corps, Madison's first tourists coming through to visit. So you're listening to the Marc McMain Show. Bob Furr filling in on Tuesdays for Mark alongside Chastity Stewart here on Q92.3. We are talking about tourism, and I'm going to go ahead and segue from the thing that made Madison a tourist destination, or its biggest thing that makes it a tourist destination, into the history of why Madison is a tourist destination. And it really starts with transportation. So Madison has been a destination or stopping point for travelers from the start, because it's been at the hub of transportation routes. So it was at the middle of the stagecoach route that went from New Orleans to Charleston. Now, really, everybody talks about it going from New Orleans to Charleston. It really went to New Orleans to Augusta, because then at Augusta, you could either continue on to Charleston to the routes that went along the coast, or you could catch what was known as the Great Wagon Road, which was the main north-south road in the country at the time, going all the way up to Philadelphia and the colonies and the states up in the north. And that was when Madison became known as the most cultured, aristocratic, and affluent town on the old stagecoach route between there. In fact, there's two stagecoach destinations out where I live. I actually live in a subdivision called Travelers Rest, and there's a little marker that was like a side of the road thing. There's a big one up at Decoa that's a really famous one, but this was kind of similar. It's not there anymore. And then in town we have the Stagecoach House where you could spend the night and stop. Then in 1840 we get the railroad, and that really changes things. The railroad becomes a big deal. 1915 into the 1920s, the Dixie Highway. So for the very first time in American history, Americans, thanks to mass-produced automobiles and new interstate roadway systems, start to travel around the country by car. And the western route of the Dixie Highway came through Madison. And so the big house in town known as Heritage Hall, everybody knows that it's got the columns on front, that got turned into what was called Travelers Inn by a man named Turnell, and it was like a bed and breakfast type of, catering to these tourists. So that probably was the very first tourist destination in Madison.
Incredible.
Then in 1969, the Eisenhower Interstate System, I-20, hits, and that's a big deal. Do either of you know, by the way, why we have the Eisenhower Interstate System? Why the Eisenhower Interstate System was built?
I don't.
So, World War II, we land on the beaches of Normandy, and as the saying went, after that invasion, it was so successful, the Germans were retreating faster than the Allies could advance. And so the Allies far outstretched. Everything had to be landed at Normandy and then shipped hundreds of miles overland on these tiny narrow roads in Paris. And so they couldn't get the supplies and stuff there. And so that was frustrating to General Eisenhower, the commander-in-chief. Then he gets to Germany and he sees the Autobahn. And he's like, I'll take one of these, please. And so while he was president in the 1950s, anticipating during the Cold War the need to maybe move military or people around the country quickly between cities, that's why we have the Eisenhower Interstate System today. And it reached Madison in 1969. Now, hotels are another big reason. So you had hotels catering to the railroad. There was the Madison House, the Turnell Butler, the Hardy Hotel, all were in town. I found something really cool thanks to my good friend Ken Coker. Shout out to Ken, the knower of all things. In 1977, there was a Holiday Inn right off the exit of the interstate system. They offered an airport limousine to the airport in Madison, so they'd pick you up in a limousine and take you to the Holiday Inn from the airport. And it was said to be centered in the heart of Georgia's quail, dove, and deer country, and hunting trips were available. And of course, the whole brochure was centered around historic Madison. And then in 2007, probably the most recent addition, other than the hotels out by the interstate, the James Madison opened in 2007, and that was during like a wave of things that were going on tied to the bicentennial of Morgan County in Madison. Now let's talk about history and attractions. Got Harleyber Creek State Park. Built in 1930, opened in 1939, built by the Civilian Conservation Corps at the end of the New Deal. The historic homes, of course, in 1974, the Madison Historic District National Register of Historic Places was placed on. And then in 1976, the Cultural Center opened, and then in 1977, Heritage Hall opened. So you see some movement during this period. 1989 is when the Historic Preservation District was founded. Then in 92, they opened the Rogers House Museum because of the Olympics coming to town. They wanted to attract people from the Olympics. And like 93, wasn't that when the predecessor, Jennifer, of the Visitors and Convention, I knew I was going to do it, Convention and Visitors Bureau was founded? What was the story there?
So I'm not sure exactly when the Chamber of Commerce was founded. That's what was before the CVB. So I know that Marguerite was kind of my predecessor, and so she was really, really passionate about tourism, and she was really active in the 90s. So you'll see photos and different things of her, and just hear stories about all of the work that she did for tourism, and really helped to build it. Another one of my predecessors, who is named Andy, he actually is the CVB manager of Visit Roswell now. He worked under Marguerite, and so she's kind of just a legend in Madison's tourism. But I think she really, helped push it, and going after media and regional associations and different things like that, until eventually, they had enough impact behind tourism to create its very own Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is focused completely on tourism, as opposed to, of course, the Chamber, which is around supporting all the types of businesses in Madison and Morgan County.
Yeah, and really its own job, to get that tourism going. So to wrap this up, then we'll take a break and we'll come back and get into it with Jennifer here. So 93, you've got the African American Museum opening up at the John Wesley Moore House. And then in 96, you have Rose Cottage, former enslaved woman's home. And then in the 2000s, there was a lot of efforts because Madison and Morgan County were both approaching their bicentennial in 2009. So a lot of green spaces, Round Bowl Spring, the town park, a lot of that all comes together. I think it was in 2001, maybe you know differently, Jennifer, the first time that I could find Madison really hitting the radar nationally was in 2001 when it was named the best number one small town in America by Travel Holiday magazine. I don't know that's the first thing I could find. It doesn't mean it's the first.
I bet you're right, though, because I've heard a lot of people say, kind of in that, like the 90s and even before, there just wasn't that much in Madison at all. So I know that they started pushing more around with Marguerite in the 90s, and that would make sense. That's when she's starting to have success.
So to bring us into modern day, and then that's what we're going to talk about after the break, 2004, it becomes one of the very first Preserve America towns. And then the past 3 years, you've had 2 new attractions open. You've got the Georgia Safari Conservation Park open in 2023, 5th or 6th largest safari park in the nation, depending on how you measure it. I say on the tour, you know what's kind of cool about that safari park is, so back in like the 1700s up until the early 1800s, there were bison here, American buffalo here. And so the safari park brought bison and buffalo back to Morgan County 250 years later. And then you got a trolley last year, from what I heard. Now, that's actually the 3rd trolley in town, believe it or not. There was a trolley back in the railroad days. Apparently, it was just a wagon pulled people up to the hotels. And then very briefly in 2001, somebody tried to make a go of the trolley business. But unfortunately for them, they tried to do that right before 9/11, which was not great for the tourism business. So that brings us up to modern day, and we're going to talk about what's going on in tourism in Morgan County and Madison when we come back. This is Bob Furr. Oh, Jessica, go ahead.
I have a name for you, Bob.
Okay.
I do, because you're so great with the puns. You're so great with the history. So amazing. So, for real, Madison Trolleys tales you've never heard before. You love it?
I love it. I love it. You know what? I've been laying off the puns.
I noticed.
I felt like I did a lot of agriculture puns last show, and I don't know. I felt like they were just getting irrigating. So.
No.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a break. Marc McMain show here. Bob Furr filling in for Marc on Tuesday with Chastity Stewart, Q92.3. We will be right back.
The Madison Trolley Company is Morgan County's newest 5-star attraction. We offer historic Madison tours year-round, a haunted history experience in the fall, and our Madison Lights Christmas Tour and Mary Maddie Express Adventure for kids have become new holiday traditions. Our private charters add vintage charm to weddings and special occasions aboard a historic trolley by day, party trolley by night. Find us on the Madison Town Square or get on board by visiting MadisonTrolley.com or calling us at 706-997-1800.
I chuckled at a cartoon that showed a news conference by a United States Senator who announced that he was divorcing his family so he could spend more time with politics. We may laugh, but the truth is many people make that statement every day. Maybe not with words, but with their actions. In fact, if a politician retires from his work to spend more time with his family, it becomes the lead story, met with cynicism on the evening news, while the one who rejects his family advancing his career is commonplace. God tells us we should work hard to the glory of God. But he has clearly shown that we must have priorities. A relationship with God first, and family follows that. What does your focus tell you about your priorities? The Bible says that we have brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. It's good to focus on the things that last, like putting God first, and then family, and then people all around us that God loves. This is Bryant Wright, speaking right from my heart.
Visit rightfromtheheart.org and click television to watch our TV spots.
Youngblood Tractor in Madison is proud to be your local Massey Ferguson dealer. Massey Ferguson has been building straightforward, dependable, and affordable tractors and farm equipment for 175 years. Massey Ferguson right now has the best lineup in their 175-year history, and there has never been a better time to upgrade to a Massey Ferguson tractor. Youngblood Tractor carries the complete lineup of Massey Ferguson tractors ranging from the 22.5 horsepower subcompact all the way up to the 130 horsepower mid-range utility tractor. And with one of the largest trailer inventories in the state, you'll always have a way to get it home. Youngblood Tractor also carries the complete lineup of hay equipment, including the legendary Massey Ferguson 1840 square baler, as well as implements like rotary cutters, batwing cutters, box blades, grapples, pallet forks, and more. There are great financing promotions to take advantage of, so give us a call today at 706-342-2242. Youngblood Tractor also has experienced parts and service departments to take care of you after the sale. Visit us online at www.youngbloodtractor.com or stop by and see us at 1600 Athens Highway in Madison.
Have you been putting off auto repairs? Do you want a body shop you know and trust? Go see Auto Correct Collision. Auto Correct is a family-owned and operated collision center with over 45 years of experience. Their equipment and training exceed industry standards. No repair is too big or small. Ask about the special drawing points and mention this ad for a discount. Visit AutoCorrect Collision at 409 Mayfield Drive or call them at 770-207-1241.
All right, welcome back. You are traveling with the Marc McMain Show. Bob Furr filling in for Mark here on Real Country Q92.3, and we are about to visit with Jennifer Rosaleon, the Executive Director of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we're going to talk about tourism in Morgan County today. Jennifer, welcome. So we always like to start on the show getting to know you a little bit. Tell us your, life story. Who are you? Where are you from? Like, how did you end up? How did your life journey bring you to be the executive director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually from Knoxville, Tennessee originally, and I went to University of Tennessee. And when I was studying there, I really liked the idea of travel journalism. My degree is in journalism, but I also learned that it's a really competitive area. So I went more into PR, public relations, because that was a really growing field at that time. And so it was a really growing field, and it had a lot of opportunities. So I thought that would be one that would really help out to be able to have a great career. So after that, I thought Knoxville was too little to hold me, and I needed a big city, and I made my way to Atlanta. And I worked in PR agencies, especially travel and tourism PR agencies. But I really wanted to get into convention and visitors bureaus. One of my very first internships, so when I was in school at UT, was with the Knoxville Tourism and Sports Corporation, which is the CVB for Knoxville, Tennessee. And I just loved it. I love being able to promote a community, to help a destination, and to get kind of all the benefits of being able to talk about travel while being able to have a home base. So I wanted to, get out of that PR agency life and really gear my career towards destination marketing. So, I was in Atlanta. I really liked Atlanta, and I just looked all around for different opportunities with destination marketing organizations. And this job in Madison popped up, and I had never been to Madison. I didn't really know anything about it, but I started looking into it, and I was just so surprised about all the things it had. At that point, they were working to build the Georgia Safari Conservation Park. They had been listing, in Southern Living as one of the prettiest small towns. Like, they just had so many things, the second largest state park, and I was like, this would be a really great place to work, and it was also in kind of the area that I wanted. So I took the job. I didn't move out here yet. I was like, let me test it and just make sure that this is where I want to be and what I want to do. And I think, like so many people that I've met in Madison, it didn't take very long at all for me to just fall in love with the town. 3 years ago, my husband and I bought a house here in Morgan County, and we just love it, and I don't see myself living anywhere else. So I'm just really, really lucky to be able to have found this community and be able to promote them and help with their tourism and just see it grow. Because even just when I started, which was very fun in 2019, right before everything went splat. Yes, literally. I started in August of 2019. And then, working through that really scary time with COVID and the pandemic and having to lay off, my Welcome Center staff and everything. But just to see how fast it rebounded and how much it's grown since then has been amazing to be a part of that.
Now, the upside to that is you're able to point to the data to say, hey, look at where the tourism numbers were when I got here.
That's true.
And then afterwards, they went through the roof. They play that game a little bit with the numbers and the economy and stuff like that. Oh, look at all the growth after 20 days. So first of all, I was very glad to hear you're not going anywhere soon, because you've been a tremendous asset to our business. So tell us a little bit more about the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau. What is it? Who is it? You told us a little bit how it got started, but just help us understand what it does, how it works, and etc.
Right. Well, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, it's completely funded by tourists, and it's completely for tourists. So it's actually funded by hotel motel tax. So that's a tax when anybody stays at a hotel or motel. They have a 5% tax in Madison and Morgan County, and the way that works with Georgia state tax law is that in order for the city to put that tax on the hotel or motel, it has to be used for tourism marketing. So we get just the restricted funding to be able to promote tourism in our area, and it's very regulated. So it has to be to market. So it's, websites, social media, paid advertising, digital advertising, just everything to create awareness and bring people here. And we work as an independent nonprofit. We have contracts with the City of Madison and with Morgan County to really work as their official destination marketing organization. Our CVB started up in 2015, and I've been with them for 6 years now. We do everything we can to build awareness about our community, from operating that welcome center downtown that's open 360 days a year, to running visitmadisonga.com, which has over 170,000 visitors a year on that, to social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're playing a little bit with TikTok. We do paid advertising. We're part of regional travel associations. So just everywhere that somebody might potentially be looking for a tourism destination, we want to be there so that they know that we're a great place to come and visit.
And so it's interesting you mentioned that you're funded by hotel dollars, because I did hear when I first started coming here that the kind of saying was the tourism goal was we want you to visit, eat, shop, and leave, and not spend the night. So it's good to see people picking up as overnight guests, and the new hotel going out there by the interstate and such like, getting that open. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show. Bob Furr filling in for Marc on Tuesdays here on Real Country Q92.3. We are talking with Jennifer Rosaleone of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau, the executive director. So when I think about visiting Madison, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is I think there's a lot of people that are listening to us right now that don't realize what there is to see and do right here at home in Morgan County. I was telling you guys before the show, it was kind of exciting this weekend. We had 9 different countries around the world represented on one single trolley tour this weekend, which was great. So who are you targeting? Like, who do we want to come to? I know we're going to say everybody, right? But like, who are you looking at and trying to reach, and who is the ideal visitor to come to Madison?
Right. Well, and that's the thing, because we are a small town. We recognize, like, with our marketing and our branding and just our funding, we don't have the ability to target everybody. So we try to be really intentional in just picking 2 big buckets that we're most successful with and really going hard after them. So when I started, we did a branding study to just understand who is our visitor, who's actually coming, who's interested in it, who's our advocates, who loves this community and will build that word of mouth to get more people. And we found from that, we went after like 4 different markets to see what we thought could be our visitor, and we narrowed it down to 2. And that is, number 1 and most important, is our cultural heritage traveler. So these travelers are knowledge seekers. These people love Madison. Over and over again, we just recently did a visitor profile survey last year, trying to see if that changed with the safari park, if we're getting more diverse types of traveler. But that number 1 type of traveler is again somebody interested in our culture and our history, coming to see our museums and our art galleries, and just really wanting to experience a historic town. So we really market after that. That's one of the big buckets that we have on our website and our social media, is focusing on sharing the history of the community, because that is something that people love to come and see and experience and just learn more about. And then when I first started, we really thought we'd have a lot of great success with wellness travelers. So it has been a really big growing market. And at that point, we were home to the first nationally certified forest bathing trail. But that one, just for whatever reason, it didn't seem to grow as much. So we kind of looked at it a little bit more, and especially with the safari park, we're really focusing more on outdoor travelers, like outdoor adventure, and now family travelers in particular. The safari park really opens up a really great opportunity to get more multi-generational travelers and people wanting to come with their families. And there's just so much to do outdoors. So, beyond our great historic district that we're so well known for, if you travel just 15 minutes in any direction of Madison, you have, Lake Oconee to go boating and fishing. You have the 2nd largest state park for swimming and hiking and mountain biking.
Golf.
And now, absolutely, golf. We have one of only 8 state park golf courses. It's one of the best deals this close to Atlanta in particular to have a great golf course. And then, of course, the safari park. So I think people are just surprised by the number of amazing attractions, and especially outdoor attractions. I didn't even mention, Southern Cross Guest Ranch, which is one of the only dude ranches in the South. It's a breeding ranch, but they also have 2 trail rides a day, and it's just gorgeous in these old growth forests that people can go in. A lot of really unique farm stays. So there's just so much to do here in any direction that people are always surprised with it being such a small community that they can do so much.
And the pick your own orchards like Sweetsbury Farm, and right down the road here, I think it's Sandy Creek. I saw 2 buses from Prince Avenue Christian in Athens. There's not been a time I've come to the station that I haven't seen a school out there learning and seeing stuff that there is to do there. So we're talking to Jennifer Rosaleone of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau here on the Marc McMain Show. Bob Furr here, WMOQ 92.3 on your FM dial. We're going to pay a few bills. Be right back.
It's official. President Trump has endorsed Burt Jones for governor.
Burt Jones has been an incredible leader. This man has my complete and total endorsement, and I really want to see him win.
Burt Jones is a trusted Trump conservative who's leading the fight to end Georgia's state income tax.
He's going to make a great, great governor. You will be very happy, Georgia. Burt Jones has my complete and total endorsement.
Paid for by Burt Jones for Georgia.
The Madison Trolley Company is Morgan County's newest 5-star attraction. We offer historic Madison tours year-round, a haunted history experience in the fall, and our Madison Lights Christmas Tour and Mary Maddie Express Adventure for kids have become new holiday traditions. Our private charters add vintage charm to weddings and special occasions aboard a historic trolley by day, party trolley by night. Find us on the Madison Town Square or get on board by visiting madisontrolley.com or calling us at 706-997-1800.
I'm Miranda, founder of the Humane Society of Walton County. We're a community-funded no-kill shelter for homeless dogs and cats. On May 30th, we're raffling off a brand new 2024 Jeep Wrangler or $40,000 in cash. Tickets start at $30 each, with only 5,000 being sold. To purchase your tickets, visit humanewalton.org. You don't want to miss this chance to win a brand new 2024 Jeep Wrangler or $40,000 in cash, all benefiting the Humane Society of Walton County.
Madison Flooring, located at 1167 Eatonton Road in Madison, is your full-service and professional installation center for all kinds of flooring, from tile, carpet, laminate, wood. They even do showers. They have granite and quartz countertops. All military, police, firefighters, and teachers ask for your discount. Madison Flooring is locally owned and operated. For knowledgeable and friendly service, call 706-431-5152.
Welcome back, Rail Country. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show here on Q92.3, on your FM dial. Bob Furr filling in for Mark on Tuesdays. We're here with Jennifer Rosaleone talking all things tourism here in Morgan County. We were talking before the break about the cultural heritage traveler, and this is the year for it, right? America 250. And you and I had an interesting conversation about this a few weeks or months ago. The revolution didn't happen here. And we were cracking up because you were showing me the Alabama state guide, and they have these like colonial people from Alabama. Like it wasn't even a colony, you know what I mean? And so, but America happened here, right? And when it's America 250, it's not America 1776. It's America 250, and 217 years of that history happened in Madison, Georgia, and you can tell America's story there. So tell us a little bit of how you're weaving that into the America 250.
Right. Well, we have a really great collab with our attractions where we meet monthly, and we just think about things that are coming up, things that are happening, opportunities, and how can we work together to, market ourselves better as a community. And so America 250 has had for years this really big marketing campaign around it. And, how can America take advantage of this time in its history to get people excited about America, about history, about, our nation. And they had literally, it's like a 40-page book of ideas for communities to go after. And we sat down, we made a little committee, and it was honestly a little overwhelming because there were just so many ideas and so many ways that you can tackle it. So we decided that we thought our opportunity was sharing stories of the people. We the people is kind of our tagline for America 250, and it's the stories of being American American in this small town, and how we can all share it. So a lot of our different attractions are, tackling different parts of that story to be able to share it, because it's ultimately Madison is a community. And so it's what is the story of that community and the people that lived in it. Different places are doing different things. Like the Artist Guild, I think, is really interesting. They're starting in June a We the People exhibit. And so they're just encouraging their artists to talk about, or to, paint and draw and use their art to show what does that mean to them. The Stephen Thomas Museum is doing a See the Pathway of Citizenship exhibit, which shows him becoming an American citizen. He was a very famous German-born artist that really made his name here in America. The Madison Morgan Cultural Center has done some different exhibits with information on the Georgia signers of the Declaration of Independence. Of course, I know that you work in some really great information on America 250 and just that history of being American in your tour. And then, of course, around the 4th of July, we're really doing a big bang. So the Cultural Center has a big free patriotic concert the night before, and Madison has always traditionally done their fireworks show on the 3rd, but this year they're planning to do it on the 4th and make it the biggest and best ever, whereas the Hard Labor Creek State Park is going after monumental moments and doing Star Spangled Banner tours and different things that kind of go on that nostalgia of Americana. So I think it's interesting, our community is getting together to share stories of we the people and what it means to be American here.
So that brings up an interesting point about, kind of collaborating and bringing everything together, because, when we talk about tourism, you talked about the cultural heritage, right? Well, the history is one part of the things that draws people here. You've got adventure in the outdoors that you talked about. You got some agritourism here as well. You've got dining and shopping. You've got events. And when I say events, I mean both the events that are staged here by various entities like the City of Madison and Rutledge and such like that, but then also the wedding venues and the events. So at the same time, baby boomers, kind of the target market right now. I'm the last year. I just snuck in. We're getting older. How are you bringing all this together to evolve as one great offering and then move into the future with it?
Right. Well, I think what's something interesting is a lot of people think of like demographics. Oh, I want to market to women 45 to 55. And the thing is, people are diverse. Like, baby boomers aren't what baby boomers were, 10, 15 years ago, or what just older travelers were at that time. People have different interests. So we don't tag on to like, oh, we want somebody that's, this age or whatever. It's more, what are people interested in? Because people want to do what they like. So our website and really how we've developed everything is thinking, what do people like to do? What are they interested in? And then just creating trip inspiration and content around connecting us with it, what they can do that makes them experience that, and then making it easy for them to travel a trip here. To make a trip here, with itineraries and such. So I don't think of it as much as like an individual as much as an interest in how we are doing our marketing. So all over our website, there's different filters and things and kind of pathways that navigate you towards, do you want outdoors? Do you want adventure? Do you want relaxation? Do you want history? And then we create a ton of content around that and what people are searching and what, the trends in travel are. One of the new growing trends is this idea of slow travel, where I think people have been overwhelmed for years really with just how much there is pulling at you in modern life. So a lot of times they just want to get away and relax. They don't want to have this super packed itinerary. So, it's just creating content that speaks to whoever that person is at that time in their life and what they want to do, and make it easier for them. We're creating a lot more family-oriented content now with the safari park, so, more things that are fun for kids, and making that trip easy for parents to think about. And then, like you mentioned with our baby boomers and our older travelers, a lot of our older travelers are having more mobility issues. So one of the really great things that Explore Georgia did a couple years back is they challenged us to think about accessibility in travel. So we took on that challenge, and we created a page that just breaks down all the places that you can go that have entrances for wheelchairs and different experiences that you can have to be able to do that. Like I think Hard Labor Creek State Park is a great example. They have a kayak launch for people that aren't able to stand or sit. They're able to just kind of go into it with accessibility. They also have these really great chairs where you can go hiking in this kind of off-road wheelchair type thing. So making it easier for people that we see a lot more people with canes, a lot more people with wheelchairs and things in our community, and we want to make that easy and accessible and let them know where they can go and they can still have a great time here. So I think it's just recognizing different people have different needs or interests and creating content that makes it easy for them to find us and learn what they can do.
It seems like you're doing a good job of, I'll use a fishing analogy, combining long line fishing, right, which is going after what your market is, but also casting a wide net. And just looking at your website, all attractions, arts and culture, events, food and drink, shopping, outdoor activities, there's a lot there. And speaking of the website, you've mentioned it a couple times. I want to get it out here before we run out of time and get it out, because people listening here locally, visit MadisonGA.com. Check it out. Follow them on Facebook. Visit Madison GA on Facebook, Instagram, I assume, trying out TikTok and stuff like that. They put out some really great content, things going on here. There's so much right in our backyard that we can take advantage of. You're listening to the Marc McMain Show. Bob Furr filling in on Tuesdays here on Real Country, Q92.3. We are talking tourism with Jennifer Rosa Leone of the Madison Morgan Convention and Visitors Bureau. So this is probably going to be the most self-serving question I'm ever going to ask while I'm on this show. But, I thought it through, and I'm like, if I didn't own it, I would ask it. You've gotten two fairly significant new attractions in Madison in the past 2 years. One is the Safari Park, which we've talked about. The other is the Madison Trolley Company. Tell us about how those two attractions have impacted tourism and your efforts in Madison.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we have to start with the Madison Trolley Co. So that was one of the things that I was so excited that you had that idea and wanted it to bring it straight to our downtown, because yes, our history is great. It's so much fun, but it's not as experiential as when you are able to hop on a trolley and have somebody that's as passionate as you about our history, share it and tell those stories and, make it easy to go around the historic district and ask questions. We do have a self-guided walking tour, but it's no way near as experiential as when you're able to just, look out the window and have this great orator tell you all the information about our community, and just your knowledge is so vast and deep. So it's been really, really exciting to see that. And I think it just adds a little bit of excitement that, now people go and they look downtown and there's a trolley. It makes us seem like, yes, we're a little small town, but it makes us seem like a lot bigger, I think, because a lot of times you just think of Orlando or Savannah. So I think it's really exciting to have that kind of asset for our small town, and somebody that's so passionate about it. So I've been really, really excited about that.
And let's be fair, because I also want to say there's also a great golf cart tour in town. And we work together closely because, we have scheduled tours at certain times and somebody's just visiting and they want to go right away. And there's, it's called Studio Wise, right?
Yeah,
Sarah Lynn Holbert does a great golf cart tour. I think our tours are a little different. I think she's more telling the story of individual places, where I'm kind of telling the whole story. But two great tour options. And of course, you've got that great walking tour that you mentioned as well. Let's talk about the Safari Park, because it's right here. I know for me, I want to say, if you're in the area, it's not inexpensive, but spending the night at the Safari Park is definitely worth doing. Tell us how the Safari Park has impacted it. We got probably about 2 minutes left.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been amazing to see it, and just the accolades it's gotten, because it's really focused on conservancy. So it's really about, saving these animals, putting them in amazing care. They're not in cages, they're out roaming. It feels like an African savanna. And the leaders of this have really built it to be like going on an authentic African game safari. So the experience that you have there, which I haven't been on an African safari, but they've told me that it's just like what what you would have in Africa. You get to actually, have this guided tour through the animals and have the herds right up near you. And it's just amazing, and it's beautiful out in this, landscape of 500 plus acres. And it's been winning such great accolades that really makes Madison stand out. So one of the biggest ones, which, is a huge win, is last year that they were listed in Time Magazine's best places in the world to go. So after that, they booked out like 4 or 5 months in advance. Just from that one accolade. And the people that we get in the Welcome Center are above and beyond just complimentary of like how amazing of an experience it is. And I've been so lucky to be able to tour the different lodges. They have these really amazing treetop tents that they have that are just like what they have in South Africa. If you do glamping, they were made there. And it's just such an amazing thing with, a balcony that looks out over the savannah. So it's really, really amazing to have right here in our backyard.
And a great experience. Highly recommend it. So, Jennifer, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'm Bob Furr, filling in for Mark here on Tuesdays. I'm going to be here Friday as well. I'm going to do something really cool. I'm going to hopefully get my mom on and have her talk about Wagons West Camp Tour, which was a really unique experience growing up. Thanks for listening. Q92.3. We will talk to you next week, or Friday, actually. Until then, keep it real, country. See you later.